Have you ever felt like life is just too complicated? Like no matter how hard you try to figure things out, there's always something missing, something you just can't see. It's easy to get lost in our thoughts, trying to control every little detail, trying to plan everything perfectly. But the truth is, we're not meant to have all the answers. Sometimes, the best thing we can do is stop trying to figure everything out and start trusting that there's a greater plan at work. Trusting God's plan doesn't mean we sit back and do nothing. It means we let go of the need to control, the need to understand every twist and turn of our journey. It's about believing that even when things don't make sense, there's a purpose behind everything. When we trust in God's plan, we free ourselves from the stress and anxiety that comes from trying to do it all on our own. We open our hearts to the peace that comes from knowing that we are being guided, that we are never alone. Imagine living every day burdened by the weight of trying to control everything around you. You spend countless hours worrying, planning, and rethinking every decision. But despite all your efforts, things still don't turn out the way you hoped. You feel frustrated, exhausted, and overwhelmed. This is what happens when we don't trust in God's plan. We get caught in a cycle of doubt and fear, constantly questioning whether we're on the right path, whether we're making the right choices. When we refuse to trust, we close ourselves off to the blessings that God has in store for us. We become so focused on our own limited understanding that we miss out on the bigger picture. Life becomes a series of struggles, a constant battle to figure out what's next, and we lose sight of the beauty and simplicity of just being. By trying to control everything, we end up controlling nothing, and our lives become filled with stress and disappointment. But when we learn to trust, we allow ourselves to experience the fullness of life, knowing that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. There is a profound peace that comes with trusting in God's plan. It's the kind of peace that can't be shaken by life's challenges, the kind that stays with you even in the midst of uncertainty. When you trust in God's plan, you know deep in your heart that everything is happening for a reason, even if you can't see it right now. You understand that every struggle, every setback, is part of a bigger picture, a picture that is being carefully crafted for your ultimate good. This peace allows you to let go of the need to have everything figured out. It gives you the freedom to live in the present moment, to enjoy life without the constant pressure of trying to make everything perfect. You stop worrying about what might happen tomorrow and start focusing on what you can do today, trusting that God will take care of the rest. This doesn't mean that you won't face challenges, but it does mean that you'll face them with a calm and steady heart, knowing that you are exactly where you're meant to be. This peace transforms the way you see the world. Instead of viewing obstacles as problems, you begin to see them as opportunities for growth. You start to recognize that every challenge is a chance to strengthen your faith, to deepen your trust in God's plan. And as your trust grows, so does your peace, creating a cycle of faith and tranquility that carries you through even the toughest times. One of the hardest things to do is to let go of control. We've been taught that if we work hard enough, plan carefully enough, and think things through, we can make life turn out exactly the way we want it to. But life doesn't work like that. No matter how much we try to control things, there will always be factors beyond our reach. This can be frustrating and even scary, but it's also a reminder that we're not in this alone. Letting go of control doesn't mean giving up. It means acknowledging that there are things in life that are beyond our power to change and that this is okay. It means accepting that we don't always know what's best for us, but trusting that God does. When we let go of control, we make space for God to work in our lives. We open ourselves up to possibilities that we never could have imagined on our own. This act of surrender is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It takes courage to admit that we don't have all the answers, to trust that things will work out even if we can't see how. By letting go of control, we allow God to take the lead, and in doing so, we find a new sense of freedom and peace. We learn to flow with life rather than fight against it, and this opens us up to experiences and blessings that we might otherwise miss. Uncertainty is a natural part of life, but it's something that many of us struggle with. We like to know what's coming next, to feel secure in our plans and decisions. But the truth is, life is full of unknowns, and no matter how much we plan, we can't predict the future. This uncertainty can be unsettling, but it's also an invitation to deepen our trust in God. When we embrace uncertainty, we acknowledge that we don't have to have everything figured out. We accept that it's okay not to know all the answers, and we trust that things will unfold in their own time. Embracing uncertainty means being open to the mystery of life, to the idea that there is a bigger plan at work, one that we may not fully understand, but can trust in nonetheless. This doesn't mean that we stop making plans or setting goals. It means that we hold those plans loosely, knowing that they may change and that this is okay. When we embrace uncertainty, we allow ourselves to be surprised by life. We become more flexible, more adaptable, and more open to the opportunities that come our way. We learn to live with a sense of wonder and curiosity, rather than fear and anxiety, knowing that whatever happens, it's all part of God's greater plan for us. Patience is a virtue, but it's not always easy to practice. In a world where we're used to instant results, waiting can feel frustrating and uncomfortable. But when it comes to trusting in God's plan, patience is essential. Not everything happens on our timeline, and sometimes the things we want most take time to come to fruition. This can be challenging, but it's also an opportunity to grow in faith. The power of patience lies in its ability to teach us to trust the process. When we're patient, we're not just waiting, we're trusting that things are happening in the background, even if we can't see them yet. We're believing that God is working in our lives, preparing us for what's to come. Patience allows us to stay calm and focused, even when things aren't happening as quickly as we'd like. Being patient doesn't mean being passive. It means actively choosing to trust that things will unfold in their own time. It means continuing to work towards our goals, but without the stress and anxiety that come from trying to force things to happen. Patience is about letting go of the need to control the timing of events and trusting that everything is happening exactly when it's supposed to. In moments of waiting, we learn valuable lessons about ourselves and our faith. We learn to be more present, to appreciate the journey rather than just the destination. And as we practice patience, we build resilience, knowing that even in the waiting, we are growing and being prepared for the blessings that are on their way. There are times in life when things happen that we simply can't understand. We may face challenges that seem unfair or go through experiences that leave us questioning everything. In these moments, it's natural to ask, why is this happening to me? But part of trusting in God's plan is learning to trust beyond our understanding. Trusting beyond understanding means accepting that we may not always know the reasons behind the events in our lives. It's about believing that there is a purpose to our struggles, even if we can't see it right now. This kind of trust requires a deep faith, one that isn't shaken by the uncertainties and hardships of life. It's about holding on to the belief that God is in control, even when everything around us feels chaotic. This doesn't mean that we ignore our feelings or pretend that everything is okay when it's not. It means that we bring our worries and doubts to God, trusting that He hears us and is with us, even in our darkest moments. When we trust beyond understanding, we find a sense of peace and comfort, knowing that we don't have to have all the answers. We can rest in the knowledge that God's plan is unfolding, and that it's for our ultimate good. Surrender is often seen as a sign of weakness, but in reality, it's one of the most powerful things we can do. When we surrender to God's plan, we're not giving up, we're choosing to trust in a power greater than ourselves. We're acknowledging that we don't have to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders and that it's okay to let go of the things we can't control. Finding strength in surrender means recognizing that true strength comes from knowing when to let go. It's about understanding that there's a limit to what we can do on our own, and that's where God steps in. When we surrender, we allow God to take the lead, and in doing so, we open ourselves up to His guidance and support. This kind of surrender is not about passivity, it's about active faith. It's about choosing to trust that even when things don't make sense, God is still at work in our lives. It's about believing that His plan is better than anything we could come up with on our own. When we find strength in surrender, we experience a sense of relief and freedom, knowing that we don't have to have it all figured out. We can trust that God is working behind the scenes, even when we can't see it. Faith is more than just believing in something, it's a gift that allows us to trust in God's plan, even when we can't see the way forward. Faith is what carries us through the difficult times, giving us hope and strength when we need it most. It's what allows us to keep going, even when the path ahead is unclear. The gift of faith is something that grows over time. It's nurtured through our experiences, both the good and the bad. As we go through life, we learn to rely on our faith more and more, trusting that God is guiding us every step of the way. Faith gives us the courage to face the unknown, knowing that we're not alone. Having faith doesn't mean that we won't have doubts or fears. It means that we choose to believe, even when it's hard. It means that we hold on to the hope that God is with us, even in the darkest times. Faith is the anchor that keeps us grounded when everything around us feels uncertain. It's the light that guides us through the storms of life, leading us to a place of peace and understanding. When we trust in God's plan, we open ourselves up to a world of blessings. Trusting God allows us to see the good in every situation, even when things don't go the way we planned. It gives us the perspective to recognize that every challenge is an opportunity for growth and that every setback is a setup for something greater. The blessings of trust are not always immediate, but they are always there. As we learn to trust more deeply, we begin to see the ways in which God is working in our lives. We start to notice the small miracles, the unexpected opportunities, and the moments of grace that come our way. Trusting God helps us to focus on the positive, to see the glass as half full rather than half empty. Trust brings with it a sense of peace and contentment. When we trust in God's plan, we stop worrying about what might happen and start appreciating what is. We learn to live in the moment, to enjoy the present, and to have faith that the future is in good hands. This trust transforms our outlook on life, making us more grateful, more hopeful, and more open to the possibilities that lie ahead. Trusting God's plan is not just about believing in a higher power, it's about building a relationship with God. This relationship is nurtured through prayer, reflection, and a deepening of our faith. It's about spending time with God, getting to know Him, and allowing Him to guide us in our daily lives. Building a relationship with God is a lifelong journey. It's about being honest with ourselves and with God, bringing our fears, doubts, and hopes to Him. It's about listening for His voice in the quiet moments and trusting that He is speaking to us in ways we may not always understand. This relationship is the foundation of our trust, the source of our strength, and the key to finding peace in the midst of life's challenges. As we grow closer to God, our trust in His plan deepens. We begin to see the ways in which He is working in our lives, even in the small details. We learn to rely on Him more fully, to seek His guidance in all things, and to trust that He has our best interests at heart. This relationship with God is the cornerstone of our faith, the anchor that keeps us grounded, and the source of our hope and joy. Living in trust is not just a one-time decision, it's a way of life. It's about choosing each day to trust in God's plan, even when things don't go as expected. It's about making a conscious effort to let go of control, to embrace uncertainty, and to live with patience and faith. Living in trust means seeing every moment as an opportunity to deepen our relationship with God. It's about recognizing that we are on a journey, one that is guided by a loving and wise Creator. This journey may not always be easy, but it is always purposeful. When we live in trust, we open ourselves up to the fullness of life, to the joy and peace that come from knowing that we are exactly where we are meant to be. Trusting God's plan doesn't mean that we won't face challenges, but it does mean that we'll face them with a sense of calm and confidence. It means that we'll live with an open heart, ready to receive the blessings that God has in store for us. It's about living each day with the assurance that we are loved, that we are guided, and that we are never alone. Trusting in God's plan is a journey of faith, patience, and surrender. It's about letting go of the need to control, embracing the uncertainties of life, and believing that everything is happening for a reason. As we learn to trust more deeply, we find a peace that transcends understanding, a strength that comes from surrender, and a joy that comes from knowing that we are part of a greater plan. This trust transforms our lives, allowing us to see the blessings in every situation and to live with a sense of purpose and fulfillment. It's a journey that requires courage and faith, but one that leads to a life of peace, contentment, and deep spiritual connection. As we continue on this path, may we always remember that we are never alone, and that God's plan for us is always good.